But perhaps the most challenging part of this entire spiritual journey is to accept the true, overarching, spiritual, universal principle as unity presents it, which is God. Even though we may have gotten to the point where we no longer believe as God is the old man in the sky rolling out his wrath and judgment or whatever, and we say things like God is love, we don't quite maybe all the way grasp that what that means is God is also universal, spiritual, and principle. God is also all these attributes that we speak about: absolute, unchanging, timeless, omnipresent, potential. And this last one, which I think we have the most struggle with, is uncognizant. Check in on your feelings as I say the following: God does not care about you. Check in with how that felt. I'll say it again: God does not care about you. Please send all your letters to the board members. I don't want them. All your emails, all your texts, everything. How could he say that? Yada, yada. Send them to the board. They'll deal with me. I don't want them. So how can I say that? Let's go back. Look at these things. In unity, unity's primary teaching is that God is principle. Let me read to you from our founders, both Myrtle and Charles Fillmore. And here we go. Myrtle Fillmore: rather than holding to the view that God is a person being subject to change, capable of varying moods, God is it, neither male nor female, but principle. Charles Fillmore: so long as the concept of a man God exists in consciousness, there will be lack of room for the true concept, which is that God is first cause, the principle from which flow all manifestations. God is principle. God does not have feelings. God does not have emotions. God does not decide to show favor on one person or group and not another person and group. God doesn't care, not because God is cold and callous. God doesn't care because a principle doesn't have feelings. Now, I know this is really hard, and here's why this is really hard for some of us. And trust me, I struggled with it for a lot of years. This is hard because, one, for many of us, we were brought up to believe that God cared. God loved us. God was spirit. God was looking out for us. God was also watching over us. God was like that sting sound. Every breath you take, every step you make, I'll be watching you. Right? We were brought up to believe that, and that we had to do certain things so that God would be pleased with us. It was a real I-thou relationship. And part of it also was when you're this small, when you're a little kid, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is a fairly kind of like abstract context. Children at that age don't really have the cognition to understand that. No, they definitely feel it here. They definitely feel it here. But then they ask questions and we tell them things, right? So that happens, and we tell them simply because that's what we thought too. When we believe that God loves us and cares for us and has a plan for us, we have what I like to call reverse engineered God. We have created God in our image, not realizing, as every religion and spiritual tradition has taught, we are created in the image and likeness of God. We are created as spiritual principle. The essence of us is also formless and timeless. Our consciousness is also omnipresent potential. And like anything else, when these principles are always there ready to be used, and depending on where consciousness is, it's gonna do the work to bring them into form. And it doesn't care who we are. Again, because it doesn't have what? Feelings. Because it's just a principle. Some of y'all are really going to struggle with this week. And when I said send a letter to the board, I was kind of kidding, of course. If you're really struggling with this as I spell it out over the next couple weeks, please come call me, see me. I got no problem being in the struggle with you. Because many of us have been in uni for years, and we still relate to God as something other than principle. And part of it is because, and tell me if this resonates with you, you still want to be able to feel God. You still want to be able to feel God and experience God. What were some of the examples of spiritual principles that I shared with you? Abundance, joy, and love. When you feel abundance, you're feeling God. When you feel joy, you're feeling God. When you feel love, you're feeling God. You can feel these principles. That's kind of the whole point of them, to experience them, to use them and work them to create the experience of the life that you want, so you feel them on the back end. When you create a life of abundance, you feel abundant. That's God. When you create a life where your experience of it is serenity and peace, that's God. When you create a life where you are love and you can love others, that's God.